Little disclaimer before this video gets started. The manga that I'm talking about contains frank sexual images. This post will discuss that subject matter. I'm going to leave the discretion up to you. I don't like leaving things unfinished. Hell, my anxiety starts to kick in whenever my to-read stack starts getting too large. I definitely don't like leaving comic books and manga unfinished. I usually take pride in my ability to finish something that I am reading, even if it's not something that I enjoy. I figure I spent money on it, so I had better read it. In fact, I have never quit reading a volume of a manga or an issue of a comic halfway through. I have never found something that I disliked so much that it made me give up. Until I read A Girl on the Shore. Asano and I have an interesting relationship. The first work of his that I read was Solanin, and I absolutely loved it. I built a connection with the characters, and I truly started to feel for them by the end of the manga. At that point, I thought that I have found a mangaka that I could really get behind. If his other work was anything like Solanin, I knew I would love them as well. Shortly after finishing Solanin, I started to hear a lot of people in the manga community talking about another one of his works, Goodnight Punpun. It seemed like Punpun was the hot thing at the moment, so I dove in straight away. I was eager to consume anything and everything that this man had written, eager to get my hands on another story that I could lose myself in. What I got was page after page of disappointment. Where were the characters that felt so real? Where were the situations that I could relate to? Who was this chicken-looking motherfucker, and why was he a thing? I was so confused. I didn't know why I couldn't form a connection with this manga, when I had loved his other work so much. I finished the first volume and never touched it again. I was a little more than put off. I freely admit that it was all my fault. I broke my number one rule when it comes to manga and comics. Don't buy blind. I let the hype get to me, and I was burned because of it. I would never make that kind of mistake again now, would I? Of course I would. It wasn't long until Asano's name started popping back up in the manga community. This time people were talking about another one of his works, a story about young love and troubled relationships. There was no way in hell I was going to fall for that again. Not in my life. It didn't take long before I was buying a ticket to ride the hype train. At this point, I was rather desperate. I was going through somewhat of a manga drought. I wanted a manga that I could connect to. Something that would make me feel the feels again. Something that would be an absolute joy to read. Something that would be a challenging read and make me think. The back cover blurb for A Girl on the Shore sold me. I'm paraphrasing here. Comes one of his most challenging works yet, an intense teen romance set in what may be at first glance one of the sleepiest places in Japan. I was skeptical, of course. The pain of being burned by Punpun seeped back into my mind. But as I said, I was desperate. So against my better judgment, I picked it up and took it home, ready to give Asano another shot. This was considered his most challenging work after all. Who knows? I could love it. I got challenging all right, but not in the way I'd hoped for. Let me make this perfectly clear. Being challenged is a good thing. Leaving your comfort zone is a good thing. Experiencing new and unusual situations in literature is a good thing. A very good thing. But never has a manga or a comic made me as uncomfortable as this one did. And not in the good kind of way. I am no prude, mind you. Violence in adult situations and stories don't bother me in the slightest. In fact, if done right, these types of situations can really enhance the story. Sex and brutality are two very real things in the world around us, and shouldn't be ignored. But by the second chapter of this manga, I found myself wondering, is it even legal for me to be reading this? You see, as far as I could tell, the two main characters on A Girl on the Shore are underaged. Well, by American standards, they're underaged. Seeing as how they haven't even started high school yet, that is a rather safe assumption to make. That is what made the whole situation uncomfortable for me. Right around the second chapter, things start to get graphic, to say the least. So much so that I found myself struggling to turn the page. I continued on reading for a bit. I finished about half of it, in fact. But it didn't get any easier for me to read. The feeling of unease grew more and more as I continued on, so I decided that leaving it unfinished would be better in the end, rather than forcing myself. This was no simple task, as I stated earlier. I absolutely hate leaving things unfinished, but it had to be done. Will I go back to finish this one day? Possibly. But for now, it has been shelved, and honestly, I don't think I have the desire to finish it anytime soon. It really saddens me that I couldn't finish this manga, not only for the fact that I was burned, once again, by one of Asano's work, but because people really genuinely seem to love it. Despite all the hype train writing I have done in my life, I really do not try to be a bandwagon kind of guy. But still, I enjoy keeping myself in the loop so I can have conversations with all the wonderful people in the manga community. I have been rather vocal about my dislike of Asano's work in the past, which has caused me to get a little heat. I don't blame him, of course. It isn't his fault that he writes things I don't enjoy. I am fully aware that I am the only one to blame for allowing myself to be continuously let down by his work. I could say this. I certainly do see why so many people enjoy this manga. I could tell that there is possibly a wonderful story somewhere in there. But I can't ignore how uncomfortable the subject matter makes me. I can't turn a blind eye to it in the hopes that I can sift through the dirt to find the diamonds. That just isn't the kind of guy that I am. So sadly, I do believe that I am done with Asano's work. His works are adored by thousands, and rightfully so. I could tell that there is merit in all the praise that he gets, but it just isn't for me. And that's okay. There's plenty of manga out there for me to read. As always, I appreciate you guys for listening to me ramble on. This is just a transcript of a blog post I wrote the other day about A Girl on the Shore. I was very disappointed. I've gotten a lot of mixed comments about this. Some people don't understand why I don't like it. Some people do understand why I don't like it. And that's great, because half the reason I make these blog posts is to start conversations. Conversations about manga and comics are some of my favorite things in the world, so anything I could do to get the talk rolling is a success in my book. So even though I didn't enjoy this manga, it did bring some satisfaction to my life, knowing that I can start up these conversations and have wonderful talks with people like you. As always, thanks for listening to me ramble, and I'll catch you guys next time.